Ji-won stood at the window of the shuttle, watching the massive alien ship grow larger as they approached. The vessel was unlike anything humanity had ever built. It stretched for miles across the dark space, covered in lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. The ship looked alive, organic, as if it had grown rather than been constructed. "First contact," whispered Subin, the chief scientist, sitting beside her. "I still can't believe this is really happening." Tae-yang, the military strategist, checked his tablet for the 100th time. His face showed worry, not wonder. "Something feels wrong about this whole situation," he muttered. "Why now? Why us?" The shuttle docked with a soft thud. The airlock hissed open, and they stepped into a corridor that seemed to bend and flow like water. The walls glowed with soft blue light, and the air smelled of flowers they had never encountered before. A figure approached them from down the corridor. He looked almost human, but his skin had a silver tint, and his eyes were too large, too bright. He moved with grace that seemed impossible, as if gravity affected him differently. "Welcome, friends from Earth," the being said in perfect English. His voice was warm and musical. "I am Minho, ambassador of the Galactic Federation. We have waited so long to meet you." Ji-won stepped forward and bowed slightly. "I am Ji-won, representing Earth and humanity. Thank you for this meeting." Minho smiled, showing teeth that were perfectly white and slightly pointed. "Come, let me show you wonders that will change your world forever." They walked through corridors that seemed to shift and change around them. Rooms appeared where there had been walls moments before. Other beings moved past them, some humanoid, others so strange that the humans could barely understand what they were looking at. Creatures with tentacles instead of arms, beings made of what looked like living crystal, and others that seemed to be made of pure energy. "The Federation includes over 10,000 species," Minho explained as they walked. "Each brings their own knowledge, their own gifts to our great alliance. Together we have built a civilization that spans the galaxy." They entered a vast chamber with a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. Floating platforms held what looked like miniature planets, each one spinning slowly. Holographic displays showed star systems, trade routes, and fleets of ships moving between worlds. "This is beautiful," Subin breathed, her scientific mind racing to understand what she was seeing. "And it could all be yours," Minho said gently. "Earth could join this great family. Your people could travel to any of these worlds, learn from civilizations that are millions of years old." Tae-yang frowned. "What's the catch? Nothing this good comes free." Minho's smile faltered for just a moment. "There is no catch, my friend. Only responsibility. With great gifts come great duties." He led them to another chamber where weapons and shields were displayed on floating pedestals. Energy beams shot from strange devices, creating barriers of light that could stop anything, weapons that could destroy asteroids with a single shot, armor that made the wearer nearly invincible. "Your world is young, vulnerable," Minho explained. "The galaxy is a dangerous place. There are threats out there that could destroy Earth in moments. Ancient evils that hunt civilized worlds. Predators that feed on entire populations." Ji-won felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of threats?" "The darkness beyond the stars," Minho said, his voice becoming serious. "Things that should not exist. Creatures that hunger for destruction. Forces that seek to unmake all that we have built." Subin leaned closer to examine one of the weapons. These are incredibly advanced. The energy output alone must be enormous. With our protection, Earth would be safe, Minho continued. Our shields could surround your planet. Our fleets could guard your space. Your people could sleep peacefully, knowing that the Federation watches over them. Taiyang crossed his arms. And what do you want in return? Simple cooperation, Minho replied. Join our alliance. Share your resources, your knowledge. Follow Federation law and customs. Accept our guidance in matters of galactic importance. Guidance? Jiwan asked. Your species is very young, Minho said kindly. You have much to learn about the galaxy. Sometimes, for the good of all, certain decisions must be made by those with more experience. Subin was still studying the weapons. Display. These defensive systems, they seem designed for something specific. What exactly are we being protected from? Minho's eyes shifted slightly. Ancient threats, old enemies, things that are better left unnamed. But surely you can give us some details, Taiyang pressed. If we're going to accept protection, we need to know what we're being protected from. The knowledge itself is dangerous, Minho said. To know of them is to invite their attention. Better to remain innocent and safe. Another being entered the chamber. This one was clearly military, with armor that seemed to be made of the same material as their ship. Her movements were sharp, precise, dangerous. This is Dayun, Minho said. She commands our defensive forces in this sector. Dayun studied the humans with cold eyes. Your world is very exposed, she said bluntly. No shields, no proper weapons, no understanding of galactic threats. It is amazing you have survived this long. We've done pretty well for ourselves, Taiyang said, his voice hard. Have you? Dayun asked. Your people still fight among themselves. You poison your own air and water. You build weapons to destroy each other instead of defending against real threats. Jiwan felt defensive but kept her voice calm. We're learning. We're growing. Growth takes time, Minho said smoothly. Time you may not have. Every day your world remains unprotected is a day closer to disaster. Subin looked up from the displays. These energy signatures, they're not just for offense. There's something else here. Something like a containment system. Minho's smile became strained. Our technology serves many purposes. Defense, offense, protection, guidance. All necessary tools for a civilized galaxy. I notice you keep talking about threats and dangers, Jiwan said, but you never give us specifics. What exactly should we be afraid of? Fear is not the word, Minho replied. Caution is better. Preparation. The universe is vast and full of things that do not wish well for life as we know it. Dayun stepped closer. Your questions show wisdom, but also dangerous curiosity. Some knowledge is too heavy for young species to carry. Taiyang's frown deepened. With respect, that sounds like you're treating us like children. In galactic terms, you are children, Dayun said flatly. Children who have found matches and think they understand fire. The chamber fell silent. The floating displays continued their slow dance, showing the vast Federation and all its worlds. But now the beauty seemed different to the humans, less like freedom and more like a cage made of light. Minho clapped his hands together, breaking the tension. But enough serious talk for now. Let me show you the living quarters we have prepared. Tomorrow we can discuss the details of Earth's membership in our great family. As they followed him from the chamber, Taiyang caught Jiwan's eye and shook, his head slightly. Something was very wrong here. They were being offered everything they could want, but no one would tell them what they were being protected from, and that question was becoming more important with every passing moment. The next morning, Ji-won woke in quarters that were more luxurious than any hotel on Earth. The bed seemed to adjust itself to her body, and the walls showed views of distant nebulae that changed slowly like a living painting. But she had slept poorly. Too many questions raced through her mind. She found Taeyang and Subin in the common area, already awake and talking in low voices. Subin had her tablet out, covered in notes and diagrams. I spent half the night analyzing those weapon displays, Subin said quietly. The technology is incredible, but there's something strange about the design patterns. Strange how? Ji-won asked, sitting down beside them. They're not designed like weapons meant to fight in space battles, Subin explained. The energy distribution, the targeting systems, they're all wrong for ship-to-ship combat. But they'd be perfect for bombarding a planet's surface. Taeyang nodded grimly. I've been thinking about their evasiveness. In my experience, when someone won't tell you who your enemy is, it's usually because you're looking at them. A soft chime announced someone at their door. Minho entered with his bright smile, followed by several other Federation representatives. Some looked human, others were clearly alien, but all carried themselves with the same confident authority. Good. Morning, friends, Minho said. I hope you rested well. Today we discuss the formal terms of Earth's membership in the Federation. They were led to a grand conference room with a table that seemed to be carved from a single massive crystal. Documents floated in the air above the table, written in languages both alien and familiar. Translation devices made the words shift and change before their eyes. The terms are quite generous, said one of the aliens, a being with blue skin and 4 arms. Full Federation protection, access to our trade networks, and advanced technology transfers. Ji-won looked at the floating documents. The terms seemed too good to be true. Medical technology that could cure any disease, energy systems that would end all resource problems, transportation that could take humans to any world in the galaxy. This is incredible, she said. But I have to ask the same question we asked yesterday. Minho's smile became a bit strained. Oh? What question is that? Ji-won looked directly into his large, bright eyes. From who exactly do we need protection? The room fell silent. The floating documents seemed to pulse and flicker. Several of the Federation representatives exchanged glances that the humans couldn't read. As we explained, Minho said carefully, there are ancient threats, cosmic predators, forces of destruction that... Those are just words, Taeyang interrupted. We need specifics. What species? What technology? Where do they come from? Daeun, who had been standing silently by the wall, stepped forward. You ask dangerous questions. Dangerous. How? Subin asked, looking up from her notes. Knowledge is never dangerous in itself. Some knowledge is poison, said the blue-skinned alien. To know of the devourers is to invite their attention. Hyerin, the young linguist who had been quiet until now, suddenly looked up from her translation device. Devourers? That's interesting. I've been analyzing your languages, and that word appears in all of them, but the root meanings are different. Different. How? Ji-won asked. Hyerin tapped her device, and holographic text appeared above the table. In Velari, it means those who consume worlds. In Korthak, it translates as the hungry darkness. But in the oldest Federation languages, it has a different meaning entirely. Minho stood quickly. Language analysis is not relevant to these discussions. Actually, it is, Hyaron continued, ignoring him. In the ancient texts, devourer doesn't refer to an external threat. It refers to species that refuse to be consumed, species that resist assimilation. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Dayun's hand moved to something that looked like a weapon on her belt. "That's enough," Minho said, his musical voice now carrying an edge. "These old translations are corrupted, meaningless." "Are they?" Taeyang stood up, his military training making him aware of the sudden tension. "Because it sounds like you've been calling anyone who resists you the very thing other species need protection from." "You misunderstand," said the blue-skinned alien quickly. "The Devourers are real. They destroyed the Keth-Moran homeworld just 5,000 years ago." Subin looked at her tablet. "I'd like to see the records of that destruction." "The records are classified," Dayun said flatly. "Classified from potential allies?" Jiwan asked. "That seems odd." Minho tried to regain control of the situation. "Friends, you are letting suspicion cloud your judgment. We offer you wonders beyond imagination, and you focus on ancient history and linguistic puzzles." "We focus on truth," Taeyang said. "And the truth is, you won't tell us who we need protection from. You won't show us evidence of these threats, and every time we ask direct questions, you change the subject. Some questions have answers that young species cannot handle," Dayun said coldly. Hyaron was still working with her translation device. "I'm finding more references. The cosmic predators you mention. In older texts, they're described as species that refused the gift of unity and chose chaos over order." "That could mean anything," Minho said, but his voice was strained. "Could it?" Jiwan asked. "Or does it mean exactly what it sounds like? That anyone who doesn't want to join your federation becomes a threat that other species need protection from?" The room erupted in overlapping voices. Several Federation representatives spoke at once in their own languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up. Dayun stepped closer to the humans, her hand still on her weapon. "Enough!" Minho shouted, and the room fell silent. His perfect smile was gone, replaced by something much colder. "You are being offered a gift beyond price. Do not let paranoia make you reject what every species in the galaxy would kill for." "Every species except the Devourers, apparently," Taeyang said quietly. Subin was studying her readings from the ship's systems. "I'm detecting energy buildups in the hull around us. Minho, are you powering weapons?" "Defensive systems only," Dayun said quickly. "Standard protocols when dealing with unstable situations." "Unstable?" Jiwan felt her heart racing. "We're just asking questions." "Dangerous questions," the blue-skinned alien muttered. Hyaron suddenly gasped, staring at her device. "I found something. A fragment of a transmission from the Keth-Moran homeworld, from right before it was destroyed." "That's impossible," Minho said. "All records were lost." "Not all," Hyaron said, her voice shaking. "Listen to this." She activated her device, and a strange, musical voice filled the room. The translation followed a moment later. "We refuse your gift of protection. We will not surrender our freedom. For safety. If this makes us devourers in your eyes, then so be it. We choose to remain—" The message cut off abruptly. The silence that followed was deafening. Jiwan looked around the room at the Federation representatives. Their faces showed everything she needed to know. The Keth-Moran weren't destroyed by devourers, she said quietly. They were destroyed for refusing to join you. Minho's alien features showed emotion for the first time, something that might have been regret or shame. The galaxy requires order, he said finally. Some sacrifices must be made for the greater good. Whose greater good? Taeyang asked, his voice hard as steel. The Federation's, Daeun said bluntly, as it has always been. Ji-won stood up slowly, her mind racing. So when you offer us protection, you're really offering us a choice. Join you willingly, or be destroyed and labeled as the threat other species need protection from. You understand quickly, Minho said. This is why we hoped Earth would be wise. Why we offered you this opportunity. Subin was backing up, her tablet clutched to her chest. The energy readings are spiking. They're charging weapons. Standard procedure, Daeun said calmly. When species make the wrong choice, measures must be taken to protect the galaxy. Hyerin was frantically working her translation device. I'm sending our findings back to Earth. If something happens to us, nothing will happen, Minho said, sadly. Earth will simply become another tragic victim of the devourers, another species that needed protection and received it too late. Ji-won looked at her team, then back at the Federation representatives. You've made one mistake in all of this. What mistake? Daeun asked, hand now openly on her weapon. Ji-won smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. You assumed we'd be afraid. The alarm that echoed through the Federation ship was unlike anything the humans had heard before. It sounded like a dying whale crossed with breaking glass, a sound that seemed designed to create fear in any species that heard it. Daeun spoke, rapidly into a communication device while keeping her weapon trained on the humans. Priority alert. Subjects are compromised. Initiate containment protocols. Containment? Subin asked, backing toward the wall with her tablet still clutched in her hands. You mean imprisonment? Minho sighed, and for a moment he looked genuinely sad. We had hoped this would go differently. Your species showed such promise. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Whatever was coming had more legs than humans and sounded much larger. Taeyang moved protectively in front of his teammates, though he had no weapons except his wits. The transmission got through, Hyerin said, staring at her device. Earth knows what we discovered. It will not matter, Daeun replied coldly. Your planet will be reclassified as a devourer threat within the hour. Federation fleets are already moving to your system. Ji-won felt ice in her veins, but her voice remained steady. How many worlds have you done this to? Hundreds, Minho admitted. Most choose wisdom and join willingly. Those that do not. He gestured helplessly. The galaxy must be kept safe. The door burst open, and creatures that looked like walking tanks entered the room. They had 4 legs, armor that seemed to be part of their bodies, and weapons built into their arms. But what struck Ji-won most was their eyes. They looked tired, defeated, empty. Even your soldiers don't believe in this anymore, she observed. One of the tank creatures spoke in a voice like grinding metal. Its words were translated a moment later. Orders are orders. Resistance is futile. Is it? Taeyang asked, looking directly at the creature. How long have you been following these orders? How many species have you helped destroy? The creature hesitated for just a moment before raising its weapon arm. But in that hesitation, Ji-won saw something that gave her hope. Doubt. "Wait," Subin said suddenly. "I need to show you something." She held up her tablet, displaying the energy readings she had been tracking. "These readings, they're not just from weapons charging." Daeun frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, your ship is broadcasting," Subin explained quickly. "High energy signals, targeted at specific coordinates. You're not just threatening us, you're calling for backup." Minho's perfect alien features showed surprise. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because we've been listening," Hyeron said with a grin that was part fear and part excitement. "Our translation devices aren't just translators. They're scanners, recorders, and transmitters." Tai Yang caught on immediately. "You've been studying their technology this whole time." "Everything," Subin confirmed. "Their power systems, their weapons, their communications. And I found something very interesting." She tapped her tablet, and a holographic display appeared above the conference table. It showed the Federation ship's power distribution, but also something else. Energy patterns that were familiar to human engineers. "This is impossible," the blue-skinned alien gasped. "Your technology is primitive." "Our technology is different," Subin corrected, "and apparently more adaptable than you thought. We've been reverse engineering your system since we came aboard." Daeun raised her weapon higher. "This changes nothing. Your planet will still be destroyed." "Will it?" Ji-won asked. "Because while you've been playing your games with us, my team has been sending detailed technical specifications back to Earth. Not just warnings about your intentions, but blueprints for your technology." The tank creatures looked at each other with their tired eyes. One of them spoke again. "If they have our technical specifications, they can build defenses," another finished. Minho stood up abruptly. "This is not possible. No species has ever adapted our technology so quickly." "No species has ever been human before," Taeyang said with grim satisfaction. Hyeron was working frantically on her device. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the ship. They're powering up everything." "Emergency protocols," Daeun explained. "If a potential devourer species gains access to Federation technology, immediate action must be taken." "Immediate action meaning what?" Ji-won asked, though she suspected she already knew. "Sterilization," the blue-skinned alien said quietly. "Of this ship, and then your world." Subin looked up from her tablet with an expression of shock and disgust. "You're going to destroy your own ship? With your own people on it?" "The Federation's safety comes before all other considerations," Daeun said, but her voice sounded less certain than before. One of the tank creatures lowered its weapon slightly. "How many more worlds must die for this safety?" "As many as necessary," Minho replied automatically, but his heart didn't seem to be in the words anymore. "That's not an answer," Ji-won said. "That's just fear talking. You're so afraid of losing control that you'll destroy anyone who might threaten it." Hyeron suddenly looked up from her device with wide eyes. "I'm getting signals from Earth. They're not just building defenses." "What do you mean?" Taeyang asked. "They're building ships, human ships, using Federation technology, but improved." She showed them her screen. "The designs are incredible, faster, more efficient, more adaptable than anything in the Federation fleet." Dan's weapon wavered. "Impossible. No species advances that quickly." "You keep saying that," Subin observed, "but maybe that's your real problem. You've become so used to slow, steady, controlled progress that you can't imagine rapid innovation." Minho was pacing now, his calm demeanor completely gone. "This cannot happen. The order of the galaxy must be preserved." Whose order? One of the tank creatures asked. I have served the Federation for 3,000 years. I have seen hundreds of worlds burn. For what? So that you can continue to control everything? For peace, Minho shouted. For stability. For the greater good. Whose greater good? Jiwan repeated Taeyang's earlier question. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like the only ones benefiting from this system are the ones in charge. The tank creature that had been speaking looked directly at her. You see clearly for such a young species. Maybe that's because we're not afraid to ask questions, Taeyang said. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The lights flickered and changed color, and the gentle hum of the ship's engines became a harsh whine. Self-destruct sequence initiated. An automated voice announced in multiple languages. All personnel prepare for emergency evacuation. Dayun looked genuinely surprised. Who authorized the self-destruct? Minho was staring at a communication device in his hand. High Command. They've decided this contamination cannot be allowed to spread. Contamination? Subin asked. Knowledge, High Aaron said, understanding. They're afraid of what we've learned, what we've shared. Not just knowledge, one of the tank creatures said slowly. Hope. For the first time in millennia, someone has shown that the Federation can be resisted. The ship shuddered around them. Whatever the self-destruct sequence involved, it was powerful enough to shake a vessel the size of a small moon. We need to get to the escape pods, Dayun said. But she didn't sound like she believed they would make it. Jiwan looked around the room at the Federation representatives, the tank creatures, her own team. An idea was forming in her mind, dangerous and desperate. But it might be their only chance. Or, she said slowly, we could take control of the ship. Everyone stared at her. That's insane, Minho said. Is it? Subin asked, catching on. We understand their technology now. We know how their systems work. And we have allies, Taeyang added, looking at the tank creatures. Don't we? The lead tank creature was quiet for a long moment. Then it spoke. I am tired of following orders that destroy worlds. If there is another way, there is, Jiwan said firmly. But we have to work together. All of us. Dayun lowered her weapon completely. If we do this, there is no going back. The Federation will consider us all traitors. Good, Jiwan said. Because it's time the galaxy had some real protectors. The ship shook again, more violently this time. Sparks flew from control panels, and the lights flickered between normal illumination and angry red emergency lighting. The self-destruct countdown echoed through the corridors in a dozen different languages. The command center is 12 levels up, the lead tank creature said. His name, they learned, was Corex, and he had been a Federation soldier for longer than human civilization had existed. But the security systems will be active. Security. Systems we now understand, Subin said, her fingers flying over her tablet. At least partially. Taeyang was already thinking tactically. How many loyal Federation troops are still on this ship? Most will evacuate, Dayun admitted. Standard protocol is to abandon ship and let the self-destruct handle any contamination. They're calling us contamination now, Hyarin muttered, still working on her translation devices. I'm getting more signals from Earth. Our government is busy. Busy how? Jiwan asked as they moved toward the door. Building, mobilizing, preparing. Hyarin's eyes were wide with amazement. They're not just defending, they're planning something bigger. Minho, who had been silent since agreeing to help them, finally spoke. Your species terrifies the High Command. In all our history, No one has ever turned our own offer back on us." "What do you mean?" Subin asked as they ran down the corridor. "You didn't just refuse our protection," Minho explained. "According to my last communication with High Command, your leaders made a counter-offer. Earth will provide protection for other worlds." Korex made a sound that might have been laughter. "Protection from what?" "From us," Dayun said quietly. "Protection from the Federation." They reached an elevator that was sealed shut. Emergency protocols had locked down most of the ship's systems, but Subin was already connecting her tablet to the control panel. "Human computer systems are built differently than ours," she explained as she worked. "More chaotic, more adaptable. Your systems are elegant and efficient, but they expect inputs to follow specific patterns." The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. "Chaos," Korex said thoughtfully as they climbed into the elevator. "Perhaps that is what the galaxy needs." As they rose through the ship's levels, Hieron continued monitoring transmissions from Earth. "The signals are getting stronger. I think they're coming." "Who's coming?" Taeyang asked. "Everyone. The entire human space fleet, plus new ships built with Federation technology. But the designs..." She paused, staring at her device. "They're not copies of Federation ships. They're something new." The elevator stopped, and the doors opened to reveal chaos. Federation personnel were running in all directions, carrying equipment and data cores toward escape pods. Most ignored the strange group of humans and rebels, too focused on evacuation to care. "The command center is through there," Dayun pointed, down a corridor that led to massive blast doors. "But those doors will be sealed and guarded." "Not necessarily," Minho said. "If the ship is set to self-destruct, the command crew will have evacuated too. The doors might be sealed but not guarded." They were right. The blast doors were sealed, but Subin's tablet made quick work of the locking mechanisms. "Their security assumes that only Federation technology will try to access it," she explained. "Human computing approaches it from angles they never expected." The command center was vast, with control stations arranged in concentric circles around a central platform. Holographic displays showed the ship's status, fleet positions, and something that made Jiwan's heart race: Earth's solar system, surrounded by dozens of Federation warships. "They're really going to do it," she whispered. "They're going to destroy Earth." "Unless we stop them," Korex said, moving to one of the control stations. His massive hands moved with surprising delicacy over the controls. "I can disable the self-destruct, but stopping the fleet will require more than that." Taeyang was studying the tactical displays. "Those ships around Earth, they're not attacking yet." "Why?" Dayun checked another display. "Because they're confused. The High Command expected Earth to either surrender or resist in conventional ways. Instead, you did something unprecedented." "What?" Jiwan asked. "You kept talking," Minho said, with something that might have been admiration. "Even after discovering our intentions, even after the threats began, you continued negotiating. Your leaders are still transmitting offers to the Federation fleet." Hieron looked up from her device with excitement. "Not just offers, ultimatums. Earth is demanding that the Federation withdraw from all systems containing unwilling member species." "Demanding?" Subin asked. "We're one planet. They're a galactic empire." "Are they?" Korex asked from his control station. "Look at this." He activated a galaxy-wide communication display. Signals were flooding in from hundreds of worlds, all across Federation space. The translation systems struggled to keep up, but the meaning was clear. "Rebellion," Dayun breathed. Dozens of species are rising up at once. Not rebellion, Jiwon corrected, reading the messages. Revolution. They're all demanding the same thing. Freedom to choose their own path. Minho was working at another station, his silver features pale with shock. This is impossible. Our intelligence networks show no signs of coordinated resistance. Maybe, because there wasn't any, Taeyang said. Until now, until someone showed them it was possible. The ship's main communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect Federation standard, but with an accent that was unmistakably human. This is Admiral Kim of the Terran Liberation Fleet. We have disabled your self-destruct system and taken control of your vessel. All Federation personnel who wish to continue serving oppression may evacuate immediately. Those who wish to join the cause of freedom are welcome to stay. Jiwon stared at the communication panel. That's impossible. Humans don't have admirals in space. We do now, Heron said, grinning. Look at this. She showed them her device, which was displaying Earth's orbital space. Dozens of ships hung in formation around the planet, but they looked unlike anything human or Federation. Those designs, Subin gasped. They're using Federation technology, but completely reimagined. More efficient power systems, modular construction, adaptive, weapons platforms. How long have we been gone? Taeyang asked. 3 days, Dayun replied. But your species has built an entire fleet in 3 days? Not built, Korek said, studying the displays. Grown. These ships show signs of organic construction techniques, but faster than any known biological process. The communication system activated again. This time the voice was familiar. Jiwon, if you're receiving this, we've been busy down here. The Federation's gift of technology came with some unexpected bonuses. We didn't just reverse engineer their systems, we improved them. And we found something interesting in their databases. That's Director Park, Jiwon said, head of Earth's space program. The voice continued. The Federation's been keeping records of every species they've protected. Hundreds of civilizations, all reduced to vassal states or destroyed entirely. But here's the interesting part. In every case, the species that resisted lasted longer and fought harder than the Federation expected. They're not as invincible as they pretend. Alarms began sounding throughout the command center. Not the ships. Alarms, but something from the Federation fleet itself. Report, Dayun called out, checking the fleet communications. Multiple ships in the Earth blockade are leaving formation, Korex reported, his voice filled with disbelief. Their crews are refusing orders. Refusing orders? Minho asked. More than that, Hieron said, monitoring the communication channels. They're switching sides. Listen to this transmission. A new voice filled the command center, speaking in what sounded like the language of the blue-skinned aliens. This is Captain Ithak of the Federation cruiser Harmony. We renounce our allegiance to the High Command and request permission to join the Liberation Fleet. That's the third ship in 10 minutes, Dayun said quietly. Jiwon looked around the command center at her strange alliance of humans and rebels. It's working. People are choosing freedom over fear. But the High Command won't give up easily, Minho warned. They'll send everything they have to stop this. Let them come, Taeyang said grimly. But they're going to find that humans fight differently than they expect. The main display showed real-time positions of ships throughout the galaxy. Red dots marked Federation loyalists, blue dots showed rebel forces, and green dots indicated the growing Liberation Fleet. The pattern was spreading like wildfire. "How many ships do we have now?" Subin asked. Korex checked his readings. "Impossible to get an exact count. New ones keep appearing." "Where are they all coming from?" "Everywhere," Hyarin said, studying the communication channels. "Earth, but also Mars, Luna, the asteroid belt. Your species has been busy building infrastructure while we thought you were just a single world." Director Park's voice came through the communicators again. "Ji-won, we need you to do something for us. Use that Federation ship to broadcast a message on all channels. Tell the galaxy that Earth offers real protection, real choice, and real freedom. Tell them the age of forced unity is over." Ji-won looked at her team, then at their unlikely allies. "Are you ready to help us change the galaxy?" Korex's massive form straightened. "I have waited 3,000 years for this moment." Dayun nodded firmly. "It's time to stop following evil orders." 6 months later, Ji-won stood on the observation deck of the New Dawn, a ship that was part human engineering and part Federation technology, but something entirely new. Through the vast windows, she could see the Kepler system, where 3 planets had just voted to join the Terran Liberation Alliance. "The Federation never gave them a choice before," Hyarin said, joining her at the window. "For 800 years they were told what to do, how to live, what to think. Yesterday was the first time they ever voted on anything. The transformation had been faster than anyone expected. What started with a simple question had become a revolution that spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Not through conquest or force, but through a radical idea that civilizations should be free to choose their own path. "Status report," Ji-won called to the bridge crew, a mix of humans and former Federation personnel who had joined the cause. Subin looked up from her science station. "The latest infrastructure reports show 67 systems have now established independent governments. 43 more are in transition." "Any resistance from the old Federation?" Taeyang asked from his position at tactical. "Less each day," Korex reported. The massive tank creature had become the Alliance's chief military advisor, though he preferred building defenses to planning attacks. "Most of their forces are either joining us or simply leaving." "Leaving for where?" Ji-won asked. "The Galactic Core," Daeun replied. She served as intelligence coordinator now, using her knowledge of Federation operations to help liberate worlds peacefully. "The High Command has retreated to the oldest Federation worlds, the ones that have been under their control the longest." Minho entered the observation deck carrying a data pad. His perfect diplomatic smile had been replaced by something more genuine, more human in its imperfection. "Latest communication from Earth. The Diplomatic Corps wants your approval for the new protection protocols." Ji-won read through the document. Unlike the Federation's forced protection, the Alliance offered something revolutionary: genuine choice. Species could request protection, reject it, or even leave the Alliance at any time. The only requirement was that they could not attack or subjugate other worlds. "It's simple," she said, signing the approval. "Defend those who want defending. Free those who want freedom. And always, always give them a choice." "The Federation High Command calls it dangerous chaos," Hyarin said with a grin. "I think they're right." Through the window, they could see ships arriving from all across the galaxy. The Liberation Fleet had grown from Earth's hastily built vessels into a massive network of free peoples, human designs mixed with Korthak engineering, Violari art, and technologies from species so diverse that no single mind could understand them all. "Captain," Subin called from her station, "we're receiving a transmission from the Harmony. Captain Yethak reports successful liberation of the Vega colonies." Casualties? Taeyang asked. None. The Federation garrison surrendered without a fight. Apparently, half of them wanted to join us anyway. It was the same story throughout the galaxy. The Federation's greatest weakness had been their greatest strength. They had spent millennia convincing people that resistance was futile. When someone finally proved it wasn't, the entire system collapsed from within. There's something else, Minho said quietly. A personal message for you, Jiwon. She activated the communication device. A familiar voice filled the observation deck. This is Admiral Kim. Jiwon, I wanted you to be the first to know. We've made contact with a Federation expedition to the Andromeda Galaxy. They're requesting asylum. Jiwon raised an eyebrow. Asylum? It seems word of the Liberation Alliance has spread beyond our galaxy. The expedition commander says there are dozens of species in Andromeda suffering under similar oppression. They want to know if our protection extends that far. How far does it extend? Hyerin asked. Jiwon looked out at the stars, at the ships, of free peoples working together by choice rather than force. As far as it needs to. That could mean expanding beyond the galaxy, Taeyang warned. We'd be talking about protecting trillions of beings across multiple galaxies. So? Subin asked. Isn't that what we said we'd do? Offer real protection to anyone who wants it? Korex rumbled with what had become his version of laughter. 6 months ago, you were a single species on a single world. Now you're planning to liberate multiple galaxies. We're not planning to liberate anything, Jiwon corrected. We're offering to help people liberate themselves. There's a difference. The communication device crackled again. This time, the voice was younger, unfamiliar. This is Lieutenant Ji-Ho of the Earth Defense Corps. Ma'am, we're receiving requests for protection from 17 different species in the Magellanic Clouds. They've formed their own alliance based on our model and want to coordinate defensive strategies. Coordinate how? Daeun asked. They want to send representatives to Earth. They're calling it the First Galactic Congress of Free Peoples. The observation deck fell silent. The magnitude of what they had started was still growing, still spreading outward like ripples in a cosmic pond. A Congress, Minho mused. Not an empire, not a federation, but a Congress. Equal representatives from equal peoples. Making equal choices, Hyerin added. Do we accept? Taeyang asked. Jiwon didn't hesitate. Of course we accept. That's what freedom means. The right to come together when you choose to work together, when it benefits everyone, and to leave when you need to go your own way. And if the old Federation tries to stop this Congress? Korex asked. Then we stop them, Subin said simply. Not by conquering them, but by offering their people the same choice we offer everyone else. Some will choose to stay with the old ways, Daeun warned. Some species prefer being told what to do. And that's their choice, Jiwon replied, as long as they don't try to force that choice on others. The stars outside the window seemed brighter somehow, full of possibility rather than threat. Each point of light represented worlds where people were making their own decisions, choosing their own futures, asking their own questions. You know what's funny? Hyerin said, still watching the stars. The Federation was right about one thing. The galaxy did need protection. From what? Taeyang asked. From them. Minho activated his own communication device. This is Ambassador Minho of the Terran Liberation Alliance, transmitting on all frequencies. To any species, any world, any people who can hear this message, you have a choice. You can choose freedom or you can choose safety. You can choose growth or you can choose stagnation. You can choose to ask questions or you can choose to accept easy answers. He paused, looking at Ji-won. But choose you must, because the age of having others choose for you is over. More ships were arriving every hour. Not just warships, but transport vessels full of refugees from oppressive systems, science ships crewed by researchers who wanted to study the universe without censorship, and exploration craft piloted by species who had never been allowed to see what lay beyond their own worlds. "Captain," Subin called out, "we're getting a transmission from the Federation High Command. They want to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" Ji-won asked. "Terms of surrender." The observation deck erupted in cheers. Humans, former Federation soldiers, liberated civilians, and beings from dozens of species celebrated together. But Ji-won felt no urge to celebrate conquest. "No," she said quietly, and the cheering stopped. "No?" Taeyang asked. "We don't accept surrenders," Ji-won explained. "We offer choices. Tell the High Command they can choose to stop oppressing others. They can choose to join the Congress as equals, or they can choose to continue on their current path. But if they choose oppression, we'll be there to offer a different choice to their victims." "And if they choose war?" Dayun asked. Ji-won looked around at her crew, her friends, her fellow revolutionaries who had started this with nothing more than a simple question. "Then we'll ask them the same question we asked in the beginning." "Which question?" Korex rumbled. Ji-won smiled, and it was the same smile she had worn in that first tense moment aboard the Federation ship, when everything changed because someone dared to ask, "From who do you need protection?" Outside the window, the stars continued to shine, and somewhere among them, people were making choices. Real choices, free choices, and that made all the difference in the galaxy.